Miss Brady. I'm the library director at WeGo, and for the next few minutes you are going to be watching a preview of the 2019 summer reading books. Each section of English has different requirements, so just sit back and enjoy the show as you learn about your 2019 summer reading books. For English 2 Honors Summer Reading, you are required to read a total of 3 books this summer and be ready to discuss them in the fall. The first 2 books that I present in this presentation are required. Then, after I have covered those 2 required titles, you will be presented with 8 other titles. From those 8, you are to choose one of your choice to read for the summer. So that's a total of 3 books that you're to read. 2 of them are required titles, and then you have a chance to choose from 8 different titles where you will choose one.
Big Brother is watching you.
1984 by George Orwell. 1984 is about totalitarianism, which is a form of governing that controls every aspect of life. It prohibits free thought, sex, and any expression of individuality. 1984 features Winston Smith, a low-ranking member of the ruling party. 1984 is set in a dilapidated London, where there is never enough to eat, or really enough of anything for anyone. Phrases from 1984, such as Big Brother, have been coined from this book and used throughout today's society. This book will make you wonder if Big Brother is watching us now. This book is called Columbine, and it's by a reporter named Dave Cullen, and he examines the Columbine school shootings and completely debunks what the media told us about these shootings at the very beginning. Next, you'll see a couple of news clips from the actual day that this event took place, and then a short interview with him telling what he learned through his research and trying to get the truth about this story.
Good evening, everyone. The reaction of so many people today was, oh no, not again. Another high school, Columbine High in Littleton, Colorado, this time on the edge of Denver. It has been a horror. The spokesman for the local sheriff's office speaks of as many as 25 fatalities inside the school, the gunman, fellow students who rushed the school and opened fire for reasons we do not know yet, for reasons we may never know. 2 of the young killers are dead. The sheriff says it looks like a suicide mission. The sheriff's giving us the first hint of what it was like in there today. Very violent inside Columbine High today. It began just before the lunch break. Our first reporter is ABC's Tom Foreman, who's been at the scene.
Also, further information break.
Eyewitnesses say the 2 gunmen wearing black trench coats and black masks came in shooting and began working their way through the school.
Back out. People were getting shot all around me. There was a guy at a table right next to us, next to me and her, and they just shot him and then walked away, and then he was just sitting there in a pool of blood.
It's just a gang of about 20 guys that call themselves the Trench Coat Mafia. They wear trench coats every day to school, and wear makeup and paint their nails and stuff. They're just I don't know, everyone kind of thinks of them as different, and they always just hang out with themselves only, kind of associate themselves with death and violence.
In the 10 years since the tragedy at Columbine High School in Littleton, Colorado, we tried to understand how it happened and why it happened and how we should respond so it wouldn't be forgotten. Of course, it hasn't been. And so it wouldn't happen again. Of course, it has. In service to those questions, we as a country told ourselves some resonant and compelling stories about that killing spree that left 12 students and 1 teacher dead, and about the teenage killers, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold. We've told ourselves that the killers were bullied and friendless, that their perceived oppressors, jocks, were deliberately targeted during the rampage. We've told ourselves that they were part of a semi-gang called the Trenchcoat Mafia. We've told ourselves that they listened to Marilyn Manson, that horrifically they murdered a girl just for saying that she believed in God. It turns out that those stories are not true. None of them are true. Denver journalist Dave Cullen spent years researching and reporting on the killings. His new book, Columbine, meticulously disassembles the stories that make up so much of the country's collective understanding of that tragedy. Joining us now is Dave Cullen, who covers the Columbine shooting for Slate and Salon. One of the most widely held impressions of what happened at Columbine and what we know about the two young men who committed that crime, this trench coat mafia idea. What was that group, and why did it become so widely believed that Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris were part of it?
Well, that was a group that was in the high school, sort of a nebulous group the year before, and it didn't really exist anymore, and the killers were only very loosely associated with it. It had nothing to do with the murders. But, you know, they did wear trench coats, and largely to cover all the weaponry they had, and also as a fashion statement. But we took little bits of a fact. Most of these myths were grounded in some kernel of truth, but we took them and ran with them. And I think that one, in a way, was comforting to us. Most of these were, because anywhere in America, we could feel like, well, we don't have any trench coat mafia in our school or in our house. So we're safe. It's not going to happen here.
Choose one of these 8 titles to make your total for the summer, 3 books.
McDonald had on E-I-E-I.
Animal Farm is not a cute little story about animals on the farm. This is a fable that is full of satire, and it begins with the society of overworked and mistreated animals. And shortly thereafter, the animals decide to rebel against their oppressors. If you're wondering if the story has a happy ending, you're going to have to read it to find out. Have you ever stopped to think about what the world would be like without children? What would happen if suddenly no more children were born? How would our society react to that psychologically and emotionally? This idea is what is explored in the book The Children of Men by P.D. James. This is a dystopian novel, so if you like that genre, this is a great book for you. It's set in England in the near future, and it centers on the results of mass infertility.
Private eyes, they're watching you. They're watching your every move.
You behave better or worse when you are being watched. I am a believer in the perfectibility of human beings. At the Circle, we can finally realize our potential. When we are our best selves, there isn't a problem that we cannot solve. We can cure any disease, and we can end hunger. Imagine the human rights implications. The possibilities are endless.
Your payment, it was for $78.13 and the bill was for $78.31. Thank you.
You got the job at the Circle.
Have a drink, have a good time, and stay excited. You're at the Circle.
Hello, May. How are you?
Jared here. I'll be doing your training.
When I first started, it took me a few weeks to really get the hang of it. Believe me, you're doing fine.
You should come visit me at work sometime.
You might think I was there to clean the toilets. Everyone really likes you.
Your work's been exemplary, strong ratings, but your absence at several events.
Sorry, my dad had an episode and I was home helping out.
Is that related to his MS?
I've been looking into your parents' situation and I have an idea. I was thinking it would make sense for May's folks to come on the Circle Health Plan.
I want to say how much I value what you've done for my family.
May, you're a valued part of the Circle. We care about everybody you care about. May's only been with us for a few months, but she has made quite an impression. So, May, do you think you behave better or worse when you are being watched? We have cameras in place all over the world right now.
Watching you.
We used to go on adventures, we used to have fun and see things, and now it's all filtered through this. Does this really seem okay to you?
Watching you,
I didn't create this. This is not what I had in mind.
watching you,
Things at the circle, they need to change.
watching you.
Everything recorded, seen, broadcast is stored and analyzed here. They can use it however they see fit, no matter what it's cost.
Knowing is good, but knowing everything is better. So, May, is there anything you want to tell us?
Killers of the Flower Moon, The Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI by David Grann is a true story. This book is a New York Times notable book, also a New York Times bestseller, and a National Book Award finalist. It's a true story about one of the most haunting true life murder mysteries and the most monstrous crimes in American history. This story is about the Osage Nation in Oklahoma, and they are an Indian tribe. Once oil was discovered under their land, some strange murders started happening. You'll have to read this to find out who murdered these people and why they murdered them. Parkland, written by the New York Times best-selling author Dave Cullen, tells the story of a school shooting that took place in March of 2018 at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida. Instead of taking us into the minds of the killer, he takes us into the hearts of the Douglas students as they cope with the common concerns of high school students everywhere, awaiting college acceptance letters, studying for midterm exams, competing against their athletic rivals, putting together the yearbook, staging the musical Spring Awakening, enjoying prom and graduation, all while moving forward from a horrific event that has altered them forever. Up next is a short video of the students representing March for Our Lives, a movement that was born out of this tragedy. Through these videos, you will get a glimpse of just some of the stories that Dave Cullen presents in the book Parkland. You will also hear the story from young adults that have joined the movement March for Our Lives as they share their stories and fight for their purpose.
My name is Naomi and I'm 11 years old. Me and my friend Carter led a walkout at our elementary school on the 14th. I am here today to acknowledge and represent the African American girls whose stories don't make the front page of every national newspaper. Whose stories don't lead on the evening news. I represent the African American women who are victims of gun violence, who are simply statistics instead of vibrant, beautiful girls that full of potential. For far too long, these names, these black girls and women, have been just numbers. I'm here to say never again for those girls too.
When people try to suppress your vote, and there are people who stand against you because you're too young, we say no more. When politicians say that your voice doesn't matter because the NRA owns them, we say no more. When politicians send their thoughts and prayers with no action, we say no more. And to those politicians supported by the NRA that allow the continued slaughter of our children and our future, I say get your resumes ready.
6 minutes and 20 seconds with an AR-15, and my friend Carmen would never complain to me about piano practice. Aaron Feist would never call Kira Miss Sunshine. Alex Schachter would never walk into school with his brother Ryan. Scott Beagle would never joke around with Cameron at camp. Helen Ramsey would never hang out after school with Max. Gina Montalto would never wave to her friend Liam at lunch. Joaquin Oliver would never play basketball with Sam or Dylan. Elena Petty would never, Kara Lugren would never, Chris Hickson would never, Luke Hoyer would never, Marquine Duque Aguiano would never, Peter Wang would never, Alyssa Al-Hadaf would never, Jamie Guttenberg would never, Meadow Pollock would never.
Comes a breakthrough. Here comes a breakthrough.
When I meet professors, they first ask me why I'm at this conference. I say, oh, I do pancreatic cancer research. And their eyes get a bit wider. And then they ask me, do you do anything with nanotubes? And I was like, yeah, I actually do stuff with nanotubes and proteins. But I was fondly referred to as the cancer paper boy. I was sure there had to be a better way. And my breakthrough came in high school biology class when I was looking at an article on single-walled carbon nanotubes, and we were learning about antibodies, a molecule that attaches specifically to a certain protein.
When Jack told the family what he wanted to do, we all mocked him and we discouraged him strongly. We said, that's nothing that a kid in high school can do.
Young people aren't necessarily credited with being able to produce these great ideas.
Then it hit me. I could have this antibody in the network of carbon nanotubes such that this network reacted only to this one protein, mesothelin, and changed its electrical properties based on the amount of that protein present. I was pretty sure I had found a new way to attack pancreatic cancer.
I said, fine, if you want to do this experiment, then you find yourself a lab.
So I emailed 200 professors, anyone who had anything to do with pancreatic cancer.
The higher education community tends to be a little bit closed-minded towards new ideas. If you're not somebody, you're nobody kind of thing.
I had 199 rejections out of 200 people.
Here's a 14-year-old kid asking to work in their lab, so I can understand that they might say, we're not a middle school training ground.
When I was in 3rd grade, I was in quadratic equations when my class was in, reading clocks.
I would say Jack is quite gifted. We do a lot of equation solving that I will tell everybody take out a calculator. Jack can do a lot of them in his head. So he probably assumed that this was a great idea and everybody would be able to see it was a great idea.
It seemed like the entire world was just telling me no. However, out of all those rejections, I had one lukewarm maybe. And after 3 months, I finally nailed down an interview with him and I got the lab space I needed.
That was a huge step, but then it was a long process of trial and error. And so there was a lot of tears, and it took probably longer than it could have if you were a PhD guy, but it was just so exciting when he finally came out with a working strip.
I ended up with a small test strip that's the size of a diabetes test strip. That's 168 times faster, over 26,000 times less expensive, and over 400 times more sensitive than the current gold standard. And the key here is that the patient has close to 100% chance of survival if they're diagnosed with that.
We see pictures of Einstein with white hair, but his discoveries were made very young, so hopefully Jack will have pictures as a 14-year-old having actually been credited with these discoveries.
Here comes a breakthrough. Here comes a breakthrough.
Nothing lasts forever. I'm sorry, I can't be perfect.
I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican Daughter by Erica Sanchez is a great read. It starts out with a strong character named Julia, and perfect Mexican daughters do not go away to college. They do not move out of their parents' house after high school graduation. Perfect Mexican daughters never abandon their family. But Julia is not your perfect Mexican daughter. And that's just the beginning of a great story about a girl who goes through many phases of trying to find out who she is, through tragedy, through support from friends that she didn't think she would find. And it's a great read. I highly suggest you choose this one.
I'm sorry, I can't be perfect.
The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo. This is a story about Xiomara Batista, and she feels unheard and unable to hide in her Harlem neighborhood. Ever since her body grew into curves, she has learned to let her fists and fierceness do the talking. But Xiomara has plenty to say, and she pours all of her frustration and passion onto the pages of a leather notebook, reciting the words to herself like prayers, especially after she catches feelings for a boy in her bio class, who her family can never know about. This is a coming-of-age story which has won several awards this year. It's a very short read, and it is written in poetry form. Up next, you'll see a little bit of the author, Elizabeth Acevedo, performing part of her book.
The Poet-X has a long story. I technically began writing it in 2012 when I was an 8th grade English teacher in Maryland.
Remember, these are black and brown girls in America.
And I had students who would ask me, you know, we never see any stories with us in them. My students were 90% Latino. And I realized that all these stories I had been telling in class and these poems I had been writing didn't necessarily end up on their bookshelves.
There is hurt here, inherited or otherwise, and trauma is a tapeworm growing in the gut until it gets so big you have to reach into your throat and pull it out from between your smile. Remember, teaching is not community service.
And so I began writing the Poet-X almost as a response to what my students were asking for, but I didn't really finish it until 2016. And I wrote a couple of other manuscripts between that and realized that the story I most needed to tell was about finding your own voice.
Alright, I'm going to show you how to get your books off of our West Chicago High School Libraries Overdrive. So you need to go to d94.org, and then you need to go to For Students, and you find the WeGo LRC, or you can just type in wegolrc.org and go to ebooks and audiobooks. In order to log in, you need to type in your school email and then put your password in and go ahead and sign in. Once you are in here, all you have to do is you can look at any of the books. If you want to go to the collections, say your summer reading, 10th grade, you can click on that, and you're going to get all of the books that are in. Right now, it seems like quite a few people have them checked out, but you can still check these 3 out. So let's say I want to check this one out. I just click on Borrow and then go to Checkouts. And then you can see what you had checked out, and all you have to do is read in your browser. So click on here and I can just start reading the book. This will automatically return for you, so you don't have to worry about it in 2 weeks. I'm just going to go ahead and return it myself. You can do that as well. You can download it, it says up here, but it's just a lot easier to read it in your browser. So let's go back to that 10th grade reading. If you see a book on here that's grayed out here and you want to put a hold on it, so you'd be the next person in line to get it, you would just place a hold. So before you can join a hold list, you must enter your date of birth. So whenever, just put whatever. Submit. And then it's going to ask for your email address. You would just type in your student email address a couple times, and then it's automatically going to check it out for you when it's due. So that's how you get your summer reading book or any book off of Overdrive. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you have a great summer and do lots of reading.